Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Now, what if the most powerful chapter of your life hasn't happened yet? Today's guest has spent decades helping leaders and organizations navigate change, and now she's turning that same insight toward one of life's biggest transitions, aging. We are joined by Erika Andersen, founding partner of Proteus founding partner of Proteus, advisor to executives at companies like Spotify and Amazon, and best-selling author of multiple leadership books. Her latest work, The New Old rather, sorry, excuse me, I sincerely apologize, explores how we can approach aging not with fear, but with intention, purpose, and possibility. This is a conversation about leadership, mindset, and designing your best life at any stage. Erika, welcome to Thoughts Out Loud. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. What a great introduction.
Thank you so much. So, Erika, here on Thoughts Out Loud, I and my listeners, we want to get to know our guests on a personal level. So, can you tell us more about yourself?
Well, I'm not sure where to start. I grew up in the United States and very supportive parents who really I was one of four kids, and they wanted all of us, boys and girls, to be successful and to find our work in life, which was a
Wonderful.
wonderful beginning. And I started my company, Proteus, in 1990, so 36 years ago. And
Wow.
yeah, and the reason I started it was at the time, management and consulting companies they were very transactional. It's like, here, we'll sell you a training. And I,
Yeah.
I really wanted to, even at the time, 36 years ago, I really wanted to be what people now call a business partner. I wanted to collaborate with my clients to help them figure out how to move forward, how to create the future they wanted for themselves or for their organizations. And so, it worked well. And 36 years later, the company is being managed by my younger partners. And
Yes.
I still work some. I write books and do podcasts, but mostly I think about the future. And now I'm thinking mostly about how to get old well and how to help other people get old well.
Oh, wow. That's so wonderful. Erica, once again, welcome to Thoughts Out Loud, and thank you so much for allowing I and my listeners get to know you better.
No,
Now, yeah, you've spent decades helping leaders navigate change. What is the biggest lesson you've learned about growth?
mm, wow, what a wonderful question. So I think the most important thing for anybody, whether they're a leader, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they're just a human being living their life, is to stay open-minded and open-hearted. I just saw over and over again that the people who had the hardest time were the people who would just close themselves down. They would decide, "Oh, I know everything I need to know. I'm the best. I don't need to grow. I don't need to learn."
Oh, oh
And
my.
that just cuts you off. And the beautiful thing about human beings is if we can stay open and stay curious, we can just keep learning and growing and evolving and getting better and more effective and more authentic for our whole
Yes,
lives?
yes, I totally agree with you. And this takes me back to a conversation I had with a guest one time where she said we as human beings, we literally have, limitless potential for growth. The thing is, most people are not just ready to grow. That's where the problem is. If
Yeah.
only most people were ready to just, go through the process of, growing, being in the field, learning something new, you'd actually have limitless potential to learn and just grow. Because it's not like the brain is like a memory card that has, a certain
Yeah.
capacity or something. So you
Yeah.
can you can usually bombard with lots and lots of information. Then she was like, one of the issues that we have as human beings that could limit our growth is the fact that we eventually have to die. And I found it so funny.
Yeah, that's about the only limitation.
Yeah.
And you know, for my purposes now that I'm focusing on having a wonderful, magnificent old age, it turned, you know, until probably 15 or 20 years ago, scientists thought that your brain as an older person stopped being able to grow and evolve and create new synapses. And now they know that that's not true, that
Yes.
we literally can keep learning and evolving and growing as long as we're alive. The one thing is though, the older you get, the more you have to use your brain to keep it operating well. It's
E-
definitely a use it or lose it proposition. So,
exactly.
you know, if
Exactly.
older people can keep learning, can keep being curious, can keep expanding their understanding and their knowledge, then, you know, we can do that until we die for sure.
Literally. And when it comes to growing and when it comes to growth, people need to change essentially. I remember there's this book I read, I think it was by Mark Manson. He said, human beings tend to underestimate how much we can change over time, which
Yeah.
absolutely has to do with growth. Now, why
Yeah.
do you think so many people struggle with change or in brackets growth, even when they know that it is very much necessary?
Oh, I love that question. So the last book I wrote before this one is called Change from the Inside Out, and it's about
Yeah.
change, and it's about why change is so hard for people. I wrote it, it was interesting. I finished writing it during the pandemic, and
Wow.
when I write a book, I'm always trying to kind of crack a code. And the code I was trying to crack with that book is exactly what you just said. Why is change so hard for people? Because in Proteus, in my company, we had had a change practice for about 10 years at that time, and we were helping organizations go through big transformational change. But I noticed over and over again, it was really hard for people, even if we helped them, even if we did it well. So what I discovered when I was researching that book, oh, I think you'll find this really interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
imagine a human being 500 years ago, anywhere, Europe, Africa, North America, anywhere. Most people's lives 500 years ago were incredibly stable. They grew
Yes.
up in the same place. They probably did exactly the same work their parents had done and wore the same clothes and ate the same food and did the same stuff. So,
Yes.
you know, in all throughout human history, so imagine those really stable, predictable lives. When a change came hundreds of years ago, it was almost always terrible. It was a flood or a famine or a plague or a war. It was terrible. So,
Yeah.
and when those awful changes would come, what we wanted to do was survive. So, what that usually meant was get back to the previous, more stable life that you had as soon as you can. So, when I
Oh,
realized that, I thought, oh my gosh, we're wired over these thousands of years to think that change is bad. And especially change that's not our idea, change that comes
oh, wow.
right? Like a flood
Yeah.
or that just comes at us. So here we are in the 21st century when those kinds of disruptive changes are happening about every 5 minutes. And we're still wired like our ancestors to think it's going to kill us and be terrible. So,
Yeah.
so what I realized in that book is that, okay, so let's figure out people who are good at going through change. How do they do it? So in the center of that book, and I actually put it in this new book too, in the new old book, we found out that people who are good at going through change, what they get good at is the necessary mindset shift. So here's how this works. So a change comes at you, anything, you know, your
Yeah.
kid's going to move away or you lost your job or whatever, some change comes at you. People, because of all this historical wiring of we think change is bad, our first impulse is that this change is going to be difficult and costly and weird. And difficult means I don't know how to do it, and other people are going to make it hard. That's what difficult means.
Yes.
Costly means it's going to take from me things I value, right? So it's
Yeah.
going to take my money, my time, my reputation, my relationships. You know, it's going to take valuable things away from me. And weird, just means weird. It's like unnatural. I don't like this. This isn't how I
Yeah.
operate, right?
Yeah.
So then we noticed that people who were able to be okay with a change and make a change, they were able to shift their own mindset to start thinking about, okay, so instead of difficult, how could this change? How could I make it easier? How can I make it doable? Instead of costly, they started to think about, okay, are there any rewards? Will this change help me in any way? Will it be rewarding in any way? And then instead of weird, they started to think, how can I make this normal? How can I make this my new normal? So
Yes.
that's why it's hard for us to go through change, that whole thing I just said. And
Yes.
we can make it easier for ourselves to go through a change that comes at us by thinking, okay, how can I make this easier? How can I make it more rewarding? How can I make it my new normal? Isn't that cool? I was so
It's
excited
actually
when I
cool.
figured that out.
Yeah, it's all has to do with mindset, as with everything in life. At the end of the day, it's all down to just mindset. I told my friend something once. I told him that, in this world that we live in, there are only a few things that we can control. In fact,
Mm,
the only things we can control is basically how we respond to things
yes,
and what we think in our heads. Is that
yes, yes,
besides
yes,
that, there's
yes.
literally nothing else you can control. And funny
Yeah,
enough,
yeah,
the moment we were done with that conversation and he was about to walk away, because I live in a very warm climate, so we don't usually wear shoes because it tends to be very hot. So
yeah,
sometimes we put on, some kind of a flip-flops or,
yeah.
just regular sandals or slippers or palm slippers. That's what we call it. So he was like, after the whole conversation and all, we had to go our separate ways. So on his way, he stubbed his toe on the stone.
Mm,
I was
mm,
like, you see, now there is no way you could have known that that stone was there. Now
right.
you've stubbed your toe and it's very painful. What can you? Are you going to curse at the stone? Are you going to get
Yeah,
angry and just start throwing, raging and what's not? Or are you just going to say it happens? Yes, I stubbed my toe. It's going to be painful. Let me just put up with the pain for as long as it's going to last, and I'll just walk away. I was like, so
exactly.
that's how things just happen. So
That's a fantastic example. How can I make
yeah,
this easier? How can I make it more okay? One way I can make it more rewarding is be a little careful, more careful where I'm walking, right?
yeah, exactly,
How,
exactly. Be more observant.
how do you deal with it? That's a wonderful example. And there was a Stoic philosopher named Marcus Aurelius who said exactly what you just said. He said, we can't control what happens to us often, but we can always control how we respond to it.
Yes, another person. Well, he's not necessarily a stoic philosopher or from ancient Greek. I think he lives in New York. His name is Mark Manson. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, I love his books. Although he tends to curse a lot when on the title of his books, but even then they are still quite informative and educative in a way. So he said something of the sort to that. Um at the end of the day, it's even if what happens to you is not necessarily your responsibility, it's not your
Mm,
fault. But how
yeah.
you react to what has happened to you is definitely your responsibility. And
Yes.
you would want to react in a way that it's to your own benefit. Something
Yeah.
happens to you, you get sad, you get angry, and whatnot. What do? You start drinking or you start taking,
Right.
narcotics. No, no,
Right.
no. What do?
Right.
You follow the right process to recover from that grief or whatever tragic thing that may have happened to you, and that kind of stuff. Now,
Exactly.
yeah,
And just to carry this a little further, I talk about this a lot in this new book, in the New Old. In fact, the way I wrote this book, I always try to, in my quest to crack codes, the code I was
yeah,
trying to crack in this book is how to get old well. And I always try to find like the thing I just described about how people go through change, I always try to find simple, useful, practical models rather than a bunch of advice. So in the New Old book, I kind of boiled it down to three core principles for getting old well. And the first one,
yes,
which we can talk about if you want to, is be the boss of your life. That's the whole thing. But the second one is exactly what we're talking about. It's master your mindset. And even more so when you get old. I mean, sometimes, your body starts to fall apart a little bit or you get
yeah,
or whatever, but you can still be in control of your own mental and emotional reactions. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can still master your mindset. And it's such an incredibly, I feel like it's one of the most powerful capabilities that we have as human beings. And most people don't even know they can do it. They don't know that they can, in effect, speak to themselves differently about the experience that they're having, right?
Yes, yes. I had a guest yesterday, right? She kind of like gave me a different view of life. Now, my this is my view of life, you know. I'm supposed to grow up, you know, make
Yeah.
myself economically viable so I can contribute to my society and my community at large. My
Yeah.
community and of course society at large. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to, you know, get married and raise proper children that will become, you know, standard good adults that will also contribute to the economy and the country in a good way.
Yeah.
Now, she did this. You know, they decided, of course, it's still the same thing. They want to contribute to the world, to humanity in general, in a positive way. But this was what they did, right? They decided to sell their house, buy a boat, and just sail the world. Now, I
Mhm.
understand they have no prior experience when it comes to sailing boats or and whatnot. But first off, my takeaway from the story was the trust that she has with her husband, and the husband trusts her, and she trusts her husband. They also have a child with them, their son, and they've been educating the son about the world, and you know, taking him to different countries, making sure they do the normal, you know, academic and
Yeah. Yeah.
formal education, and also taking him to different parts of the world to experience different cultures and whatnot. Now, I was like, honestly, I first of all apologize for what I was about to say. I was like, I'm very sure that lots of people told you that you're a crazy person. She laughed and she was like, yes, definitely. Because I can't imagine waking up and selling my house. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow. I was like, honestly, I was like, you know, my takeaway from everything you've told me today, I was like, what I've learned from you is my life is literally in my hands. I can just wake up and just start doing something else entirely. Of course, not
Mhm.
to my own detriment, but just to experience life a different way. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, I was like, wow, wow, that was my takeaway. A lot of things are actually in my control. It's just
Yeah.
I'm just unaware of how much, just like you explained, lots of people are unaware of the ability they have to actually cause a crazy mindset shift to begin to educate themselves about things that they may have never even had interest in. But just because of the fact, you know, okay, they're getting old, probably they've retired from their jobs. There are other
Yeah.
aspects to life. You can explore these aspects. You can begin to,
Yeah.
you can start writing, you can start learning an musical instrument. Could even start acting. I mean, I see lots of old people in movies, and I don't think they're putting on makeup or prosthetics or anything
Yeah.
of the sort.
Yeah.
So there are lots of
Oh,
things you
no,
could
that's
actually
right.
do.
Because the reason the first principle of the book is be the boss of your life is that a lot of there's a lot of ageism in the world and all over the world in all societies. And we
Yes.
have, as a group, human beings have really limiting and negative assumptions about older people. And part of it is because the reason I call the book The New Old is because this is the first time in human history that most people get old. Like,
Wow.
right? Like 100 years ago, 1 in 20 people were over the age of 65.
Oh
Now,
my God.
1 in 6 people is over the age of 65. And the vast majority of people all over the world live to be at least 65. That didn't used to be true. And what's even crazier when you think about it is
Yes.
in most countries, if somebody right now is 65 years old and they're pretty healthy and they don't smoke, they have 50% chance of living to be 90.
Wow.
Right? So
Wow.
that has never ever happened in the history of humanity. So ageism, our ideas of old people are based on these things that are no longer true. They're based on the idea that by the time you get to be 65 or 70, you're pretty much done and you're probably going to die pretty soon.
Yeah.
And that's no longer true. I mean, I just turned 74 and I feel like
Wow.
I'm in the middle of my life.
Yeah.
I hope I can live another 20, 25 years. And I'm very healthy and I exercise and I think a lot and I write, but there's no reason I can't. So we
Yes.
have to just completely rethink our idea of what this last third of life is. And not only does society need to rethink it, but we old people need to rethink it too, so that we don't just fall prey to that idea that we just have to kind of sit around until we die. We can do whatever we want, more or less, you know?
Yes, yes. Honestly, like your life is in your hands, and just
Mhm.
live life and just. So, Erica, why do you think so many people fear aging, fear growing old? Now, I for one, I'm not necessarily afraid of aging or growing old because what's the point? It's still going
Yeah.
to happen. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm some kind of scientist that's going to invent some drug that is going to make me young forever or something. There's nothing I can do about it. And I remember one time I was having a conversation with a friend where he told me, the crazy thing about the human body is if you don't want to grow mentally, maybe mentally you don't want to grow, you don't want to mature, your body doesn't necessarily care. Your body will continue to age. So you need to make sure that you are keeping up with your body essentially. So
Yeah.
like because in my country, for example, there's a certain age you get to, certain things are expected of you. I mean, you cannot be in your 20s and be acting like somebody that's 14 or 15 or
Right.
you understand what I mean? So it's
Right.
very important that especially when you're from a small rural community, it's very important that at a certain age you start acting a certain way. Of course, what I'm
Yeah.
essentially trying to say is you should only make sure that you are educating your mind. Your mind is just how do I put it? It's growing alongside your body. For example, now speaking with you, Erica, I was able to just before we caught up the video feed posted the interview. I thought maybe you were in your 50s. I'm serious. That was what I thought, honestly. That's why when I heard your age, I was so even from the sound of your voice, you don't even sound like you are in your 70s at all.
Yeah.
You sound so
Yeah.
young, so energetic, so vibrant. And this is I
And that's
honestly
how I feel. And I feel,
yes,
your question of why people fear getting old, I think there's two things. One is everything we've been talking about in terms of ageism. I think people think about getting old and they think about it in the way our human society thinks about getting old. Oh, you're going to be weak and frail and dependent, and you're not going to be able to do anything, and your body's not going to work, and your brain's not going to work. They
yeah,
expect all these negative things. And then the other thing that's scary about getting old is there really are a lot of unknowns. Like when you just said, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, the biggest unknown is that, sorry, eventually we're all going to die, right? So
yeah, yeah,
that's terrifying, of course. So one of the things I talk about in the book is like, okay, so if you're afraid, the best thing always is to face your fear, allow yourself to feel what you're afraid of, name it, and then think of, okay, what's the very worst thing that could happen? Well, I could die. In fact, I'm going to die. Okay.
yeah.
So once you've named it and faced it and said the worst thing, then you can say, okay, what can I do to mitigate that? What can I do so I'm not afraid of that? Well, okay, I'm going to die. I have no control over that. But what I can do is make my life until that moment as cool as I can, as wonderful as I can,
Exactly.
as full of
Exactly.
love and growth and interesting adventures. Okay, great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And I feel we've discussed how mindset is important, how the way you think and the way you think about life could affect how you live your life. Now,
Yes.
you know, I don't think everybody, how do you think, the way you think about growing old, how do you think it can impact your experience of growing old? Can you use your because you've been there's a saying in America. I hope I don't mistake it. I think the phrase is someone who has been around, like I've been around the block. You've been around
Yes.
the block, Erica. So you've been around the block. I mean, I'm a newcomer. I've just been here for a few years. I'm currently 26 years old, so I'm literally
Wow.
just I'm literally a child. I could even be your son. So
Yes.
so you can imagine. So you've been around the block. So how the way you thought about growing old, how has it affected your experience of you growing old?
Okay, so I love this question. So there's a chapter in the book about, there's a whole section in the book, mastering your mindset. And the place I start helping my readers do that is teaching them how to manage the way they talk to themselves. So you know
Yes.
that we all talk to ourselves, right? There's a whole little
Yeah.
silent monologue running in our heads all the time, right?
Yes, 100%.
And usually it's kind of It's funny. It's funny that this is true, but usually it's pretty benign. Like we just have this continual running commentary in our head of like, oh, I
Yeah.
like that guy's shoes. Oh, it's pretty hot today. Huh, I wonder what I'll have for lunch. Did I put the dog in the, just blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 right? But unfortunately, sometimes it's not benign. Sometimes it's very negative. And you can manage that. So, like for instance, let's say somebody is 60 years old and
Yes.
they tune into that interior monologue, to their self-talk, and they find that they're saying to themselves, it's all downhill from here, right?
Yeah.
Some negative thing. Okay, then what you can do is you can hear that. Wow, I'm saying that to myself. It's all downhill from here. And then what I recommend is that you write it down because once you see it written down, it kind of separates you from it and it doesn't feel like you anymore. And then you can start to play with it. You can start to change it. So you write down, it's all downhill from here. And then you look at that and you go, geez, I don't want to be saying that to myself.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
what do I want to say instead? What can I say instead that seems more hopeful, more supportive, but that I will believe? So, you might say something like, I don't know that, and I want to make it the best it can be. Ooh, let me write that down. I don't know what it's going to be like. I want to make it the best it can be. And then
Oh
what you
wow.
do is then every time that your mind brings up that like, oh, it's all downhill from here or old age is horrible, you go, wait, I don't know that. And I want to make it the best it can be. So it's almost like becoming your own coach. And it doesn't have to be about old age. Like I was working, 10 years ago, 5 years ago when I was still doing executive coaching, I was working with a
Yes.
very young man, brilliant man. He was in his 30s. He was an entrepreneur. He'd already built this company. And he was saying to himself, and he needed to get more investment for his company. And he was saying to himself, nobody's going to invest in me because I'm too young. He realized he was saying that to himself. And his name was Jeff. And I said, Jeff, wow, that's such an unhelpful thing to be saying to yourself. What could you say to yourself differently? And he said, well, I could say I've had people be interested in investing in me who don't care about my age. I said, okay, say that. That's a much
Exactly.
more helpful thing to say to yourself. So
Yes.
so you can change how you talk to yourself. And that is such a powerful thing. And most people don't realize they can do it.
Honestly, and it's painful. I really hope if they're opportunity to listen to, our conversation, they actually open up their minds to be able to, talk to themselves and
Yeah.
be able to control their thoughts and get rid of the negative thoughts essentially. Now,
Yes, exactly.
growing up, my purpose or whatever I have wanted to achieve has changed over time. When I was 5 years old, I probably wanted to get maybe a kind of toy or something. I actually
Yeah.
can't remember. Then I turned 10 and I wanted to just I want to become an adult. Now I'm finally an adult responsible for myself, and now I feel like I would really love to go back and be a child again just for for a very
Mm.
short time. So
Yeah.
the question I'm leading towards is, how can people rediscover and redefine their purpose as they get older? And can you use yourself, your life as an example for
Yeah.
us?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, so in the first part of the book, this latest book where I talk about being the boss of your life,
Yes.
one of the first chapter I use, there's another book that I wrote about 15 years ago, I think, called Being Strategic, and it's about how to craft a clear vision, exactly what you're saying, a clear vision for your own personal future or for the future of your enterprise, and then
Yeah.
make a plan for getting there. So in this new book, I teach a kind of simpler version of that for people because what happens is exactly what you're saying. A lot of times people have a clear vision for their life up until they get to be about 60. Until then they're like, I have a vision for my business and for the kind of family I want to create and the kind of grown up I want to be. And then they stop visioning. So in the book, I call that chapter Keep Envisioning Your Future. And I offer an approach for doing that. and for thinking about and clarifying what kind of an older person do I want to be and what kind of a life do I want to have as an older person. And then I share, there's a lot of activities in the book, so I share practical activity for doing that. And then I give myself and some other people I interviewed for the book as examples. And so my vision for my 70s is that in my 70s, I will be full of light, deep, strong, and magical.
Oh,
That's my
wow.
vision for myself, right?
Yeah.
And my vision for my life, what kind of life I want to have in my 70s, is that it is about exploration, that I will have time to discover and support and enjoy myself, the world, and the people I love. So that those two simple sentences, they're like my North Stars. And most days I kind of go, okay, am I feeling full of light, deep, strong, and magical? Yeah, pretty much. What else can I do to do that more, you know? So when
Yeah.
you have a clear vision for yourself, then you can use it as a guidance system. You can go, okay, this is what I say I want to be. This is who I say I want to become. Am I moving in that direction? Yes. Or what else can I do to keep moving in that direction? It's a very powerful thing. I love having a vision.
Wow. Thank you so much for that response, Erica. Now, Erica, some people find it very difficult to, handle change. I think I
Mm,
heard a story one time of a boy that he was very good in school and he was doing very, very well. I think he was one of the best, if not the best students in the whole of the institution at the time. And I think they gave him a scholarship, to leave the country to go somewhere else to study. Now, he wasn't expecting this. He never actually planned towards this. It just happened all of a sudden. So essentially, he had to pack up his bags, leave his friends, leave his family, go to a new country and study. I
mm,
think they said he rejected it or something. Now,
yeah,
most people would be like, an opportunity for you to change your life, probably move your life 10 paces forward or
yeah,
5 times faster towards being, successful or something, and you threw it away. But
yeah,
you need to understand, I thought about it, I was like, it's too much for some people. Do you know what it means? Like everything you're familiar with, you're asking me to throw it away and go
yeah,
to a new place. And if he was actively working towards, earning that scholarship, it would be different. But it just came all of a sudden from nowhere. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, so how well if let's say I before that happened to him, I was opportune to, have this conversation with him and record this podcast, and by some, I don't know, universal chance he listened to it. What would you have, said to him? How would he have handled that kind of change?
It's a great question. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about before about change, because I've actually worked with a lot of people who, like somebody who gets at work, who gets an unexpected promotion or who
Yeah.
gets a big project given to them that if they do it well, it will really be good for their career. And if they do it badly, it won't, or somebody
Yeah.
who's an empresario, a business person who gets a big investment. And so what I always said to them was exactly what we were talking about before with change. It's like, okay, think about this opportunity and think, how can you make it easier? How can you make it easier for yourself to take advantage of this? What do you need to do to make it rewarding, to really take advantage of it? And almost most important in sudden situations like this, how can you make it normal? What can you do to make it seem more normal? So I'll take the kid who, the person you talked about who maybe got a scholarship and go away. Okay, so you're in a new country, you're with new people, you're not around your family. How can you make that more normal? And then there are
Yeah.
practical things he could have done. It's like, okay, how can I stay in touch with my family? Well, I can't afford maybe to call them much, but oh, the internet, I can do video calls with them. Okay. Can I make some new friends who will feel familiar? Ooh, maybe there's even some kids here in school who are from my country or from my, region. So a
Yes.
lot of times I think what happens is when change, even a good change comes at us, we just kind of we just kind of freak out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't stop and go, okay, okay, how can I take advantage of this? How can I make it easier? How can I make it more rewarding? How can I make it more normal? And when I hear about something like that, I always think, oh, I wish I was there. I could have helped them think through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow. Thank you so much for that, Erica. Now, Erica, I believe life comes in phases, you understand? I would, if I were to use my crude, because like I said, I'm not that experienced. I've just been around. I've not really been to the block, not to talk of being around the block. So I'm just going to use my crude understanding from the crude experience I've gained for the short time I've been here. So I think life comes in phases. I think the first phase would be from 1 to probably 5. I think that's when you become self-aware like an AI or something like, oh, I'm actually alive and I'm a human being.
Yeah,
For like from let's say from 1 to 5, you've been like an NPC, then 5 years old, you become aware that you're alive and your life could actually end at any moment. Then
yeah,
10 years old, you start to realize that, oh, my parents are not really bad people. From let's say from 10 to like 15, they're just trying to figure out life, and unfortunately for them, they now have to add me to their problem. So yeah. Then you eventually get to like 20, then you start to realize, oh wow, so I'm actually going to go through everything my parents went through. I'm going to make mistakes and whatnot. But you know what? I have to make the most out of it. But it's
yeah,
very important that you have the right people beside you through these phases of life. Now,
yeah.
how can someone, let's say generally, how can people, make sure that they have the right people with them? What are some insights you could give us? Because, like I said, you've been around the block and we really
Yeah.
need your experience and your wisdom.
Oh gosh, these are such great questions, Blessed. So I think the first thing is always to, even as a very young person, in your teens and 20s, to try to develop a sense of the kind of person you want to be and the kind of life you want to have. Not necessarily even your whole future or your career, but do you want to be what kind of what are the qualities that you want to have? Well, I want to be an honest person. Okay, great. I want to be a hard worker. Okay, great. To figure out the kinds of things that are important for you that you want to have. I want to be an artist. Okay, important. Whatever that handful of things that are important to you, so that you can find people who support that in you, who support your vision. But then beyond that, the three things I found in people that I want with me on my journey. The first one is that they have my best interests at heart,
Yes,
right? They
yes,
really want the best for me. And I, of course, I mean, I'm a good person. I want the best for them. But there are a lot of people who want to be in our lives who really don't want the best for us. So I think
yes,
that's an important thing to recognize, even as a very young person. So that's thing one. The second thing is that they will tell us the truth about ourselves, right?
yes,
That if they see that we're doing something that's going to hurt us or something wrong or something that's going to hurt somebody else, that they'll tell us. And hopefully they'll tell us with love and with support in a way we can hear, but that they will tell us the truth. And then the third thing is that they see us clearly. That's the most important. Like one of the people in my life who has all three of these, they want the best for me, they'll tell me the truth and they see me clearly, is my son. My son, who
oh
is
wow,
38 years old, he's about to
oh
be
my,
38. And I just love talking to him because we love each other so much. But he really, man, I just can't pull anything off on him. I mean, if I'm doing something wrong or if I'm saying something to him that doesn't feel true to him, he'll tell me, and we need people like that in our lives, I think.
yes, yes. Wow, thank you so much for that wisdom. I hope everyone listening, I hope you guys are taking notes. If possible, write it on your wall somewhere. And it's very important that you do. Like I said, Erica has been around the block and she knows what she's saying. She's talking from lived experience, not, something from a notebook or anything of the sort.
Yeah.
Erica, thank you so much for that wisdom. Now,
Oh,
Erica, if someone is listening to us or someone has been listening to us for the past few minutes and they feel very unsure about their future, how can they start to design, a meaningful chapter of their life?
mm. All right. Well, I'm going to very quickly go through this process that I taught first in this book, Being Strategic, and then taught again in the most recent book is, okay, the first thing you have to figure out is what what am I solving for? What challenge am I tackling? So that you get clear in your mind about, am I trying to figure out the career I want to create for myself? Am I trying to figure out the family life? What am I, so And a good way to do that is to use what we've come to call a how can I question. So how
Yes.
can I create, for instance, how can I create a career that I enjoy and that will make me a reasonable living? That might be your challenge question, right? Or it
Yes.
might be, how can I build a relationship based on trust and mutual respect? That might be the challenge you're trying to solve. So that's the very first thing. Just get clear about what you're solving for, the main thing you're trying to figure out. Because a lot of times people just feel confused. And if you're not
Yeah.
clear about the core thing you're trying to figure out, then it's hard to answer the question. So once you have that question, so let's say that you decide your question is, how can I create a career that I really enjoy that makes me a comfortable living, right?
Yeah.
And what the next thing to do is, as neutrally and honestly as you can, think about where you're starting from relative to that. So you go, okay, if what I'm trying to do is figure out a career that I enjoy and that will support me, what do I have going for me? You know, what strengths do I have? What supports around me do I have? And what do
Yeah.
I have going against me? What might get in the way? What might I lack? What's threatening that? And just try and be as balanced, as clear as you can. It's so useful to get like, here's my starting point. Then, once you've done that, we call this the time machine exercise. You say, okay, let's just pretend. Now I'm just going to pretend it's 2 years from now. Presto
Yes.
changeo. It's 2 years from now. And I've answered that question. I've created a career that I really enjoy and that, supports me. What does that look
Yes.
like? What does it look and feel and sound like? And just allow your wonderful human imagination to envision that 2 year future where you've answered your question, where you've had it. And the wonderful thing is our brains are so inventive and clear and clever that a lot of times it comes to you, oh, I really want to be working with numbers. Oh, or I really want to be working in a small enterprise because that would feel more comfortable to me. Or I really, your brain is smart, and it knows
Yes.
a lot. And so you just kind of write down whatever your brain envisions that 2 years, and then you look at what you've written down and you pull out the key things. Usually there are 3 or 4 things in your vision that are really important to you. And you write those down, and then that becomes the basis of your planning. So let's say you decide the fourth, I'm just making this up, but let's say that the 4 things that come out of your envisioning exercise are, I want
Yes.
to stay in my locality. Let's say that's important to you. I want to stay in my locality. I want to work in a small business that will feel very personal to me. I
Yes.
really like interacting with other people. So I don't want to be in an office someplace. I want to interact with other people. And I really want to take advantage of the fact that I love to draw and I'm very good at it. I'm creative. So if you look at those 4 things, it's like, okay, that gives me a little sense of direction of what I might start looking for. Does that make sense?
Oh wow, it actually does. It makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for those wise words, Erica. Now, Erica, I have a set of rapid fire question I want to ask you. You can
Okay.
either answer with a phrase or a sentence, and I want you to know that both options are available. So the first one is growth or comfort. I mean, this is obvious. Definitely growth or both.
My answer is growth and comfort.
Yes. Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, control or acceptance.
Um, Control what you can and accept what you can't.
Simple. I think is it the Spanish people or the French people? They would say capiche. I don't know which people, but
Capiche. Yeah, yeah. It
I know
can be.
there are people that say that.
Yeah.
So the
Capiche.
next,
Yeah,
yeah,
I get it.
yeah. Okay, the next one is past or future.
Present.
Oh my, I made a mistake. I would have said this question properly. Yes, definitely, I agree. Now, purpose or success.
Purpose, because being clear about your purpose will create a successful life.
Yes, I agree 100% once again. Now, what is one word that defines a great life for you?
Joy.
Oh my. Can you elaborate on that for a few seconds?
Um, I love joy.
Yeah,
Joy is
yeah.
such a wonderful feeling, and I feel like within joy are a bunch of other lovely feelings, gratitude, appreciation. It's joy is such a wonderful energy. And if you can allow yourself and cultivate the feeling of joy in yourself, then you can be what Mahatma Gandhi said. You can be the light that you want to see in the world. Joy
Wow.
is such a powerful communicator of itself. It's very, if you're around somebody who's truly joyful, it's pretty hard not to pick up on that a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Erika. Honestly, this has been a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
I've learned a lot from this short period that we've been talking, and I want to thank you for taking I and my listeners on a little excursion around the block, and for allowing us to visit all the wisdom stores in the block, and it's been wonderful so much. Now, this is my final question before we round up. If someone is listening and they feel afraid of getting old, although it's literally inevitable,
Yeah.
and they feel like their best years are behind them, what would you want them to hear right now to kind of lift their spirits?
All I can do is share my experience, which is from my point of view, my 70s are my best decade yet. And I
Wow.
said that recently to a friend who's 83, and her response was, wait until you get to be 80.
Wow, I love that so much. That's absolutely encouraging. Now, I wasn't necessarily, that afraid of getting old, but if I did have any fear, it's all gone now because of you,
Oh,
Eric, and
good. Good.
it's been
Thank
such
you
a
so much,
pleasure.
Blessed. Yes, this is a
Yeah.
wonderful conversation, and your curiosity is infectious, and you ask such good questions. This
Uh,
has really been great.
Thank you so much. I try my best. Thank you so much. And like I said, Erica, it's been wonderful to have you. Where can my listeners, learn more about your book, connect with you, and get copies of your book?
So the book is for sale at all Amazons. The New Old, Crafting Your Best Later Life. And if they want to find out more just about me, they can go to my website, which is erikaandersen.com.
Okay, wonderful. Once again, Erica, it's been a pleasure to have you on my podcast. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for the excursion around the block, and thank you for everything. It's been such a pleasure having you on my podcast. And please
Thank
don't
you.
forget to leave a review on the podcast. It helps me to find, much more wonderful and beautiful guests like yourself.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Yes, and do have a wonderful day and do take care of yourself.
You too. Bye.
Bye.